I had the most powerful interview today with Kay Allison. I'm so excited to bring to you this episode with Kay Allison. Kay Allison wrote a book called Juicy AF. AF, we always know what that means, but in her case, it is juicy alcohol free. And it's about the story of someone who just is a colorful ball of light growing up in a household that, in her words, were beige and too conforming. She used alcohol as a really adaptive measure to experience and live life until it no longer worked and became maladaptive. She went through AA, she went through 12 steps, and really recognized that for her in particular, it was more of a shaming experience than anything else. And she knew that there was going to be a different way that she needed to fully recover. She's created her own program to help people become alcohol free. She talks about it in this program. She gets raw and real in our episode and shares about what her life experience was, what brought her to using alcohol in her life, and what caused her to stop using, and the program that she's developed for other people interested in doing that as well. You do not want to miss this episode. Please join us, take a listen to what Kay has to offer, and maybe even get on her calendar. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Flip That Shit. My name is Stacey Uhrig. I'm your host, and today's guest is going to be Kay Allison. You're going to love this episode. So welcome, Kay. How are you?
Good morning, Stacey. It's great to see you.
It's nice to see you, too. I've got Kay. Kay, you're coming from where?
Boulder, Colorado. Beautiful Boulder, where I'm looking at wildflowers out my window.
That's awesome. I am in a dungeon office with no window.
I've been there.
Coming straight from New Jersey outside of Manhattan. When I asked you in our initial interview, I always do like an initial 20, 30-minute interview months before, usually, just to see what it is you'd want to share. You shared with me that you wanted to talk about an issue with alcohol and how you recovered from it. So I'm just going to kind of open up the door there and just ask, what was that? What was that issue with alcohol that you had?
So for me, alcohol was like a ticket out of an uncomfortable growing up situation. I am very much an extrovert. I'm very colorful, and I grew up in a very straight-laced, very beige, very quiet home where I felt like I was unseen, unacknowledged, and certainly not validated or valued. And so alcohol for me was this magic carpet ride to a world of color and imagination and glamour, and, you know, it was just the idea of where it took me was intoxicating, let alone, you know, the effects of the alcohol. And quite frankly, because of the way I grew up, I can sense what's going on with everybody around me all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so overwhelming. I mean, it's not anymore because I've learned how to deal with it, but it was so overwhelming as a kid that I think that getting numb from alcohol was an escape from a really I was so uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable in my skin. I was so uncomfortable in my family. I kept wondering what was wrong with me. You know, like anyway, alcohol was a great answer for me for a long time. And then what happens is, because of the effects of alcohol on our bodies, we get addicted, and the pain, it becomes a pain alleviator rather than this magic carpet ride.
May I ask you, at what age did you start exploring and experimenting with alcohol?
I was a freshman in high school.
A freshman in high school, which it's the same 13, age as I was. Yeah. Old. I mean, yeah, it's not that uncommon. So can I ask you a few questions? Because I have so many in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned a whole bunch of things, which are great, because it's really what I preach all the time, which is when I talk about trauma, I often make it very clear to people, I feel like a trauma educator, that trauma is not always what I call the 3 A's: acts of violence, acts of aggression, acts of abuse. Trauma, especially when we're younger, can be experiences that leave us feeling unseen, unheard, insignificant, unimportant. Okay. And I want to explain why. When we're little, and I'm saying before we're 8, okay? Because really between the ages of 2 and 7, 2 and 8 is when they say our core beliefs about who we are really being formed. We need just a handful of things, right? Let me know that you're going to feed me, keep me hydrated, keep a roof over my head. You're going to keep me clean. But more than anything, we need to know we belong. We need to know we belong. We are hardwired for connection. I could literally say this till I'm blue in the face. And so anything that feels like a threat to that is going to feel very, very uncomfortable. And that is going to be the trauma. So is it fair to say that growing up, you shared that you were super colorful, you had a lot of excitement in your system that you didn't know how to express,
right.
Creative. You can see this in you. And you said you grew up in a very beige family. Was there shame associated with showing up as you were? Meaning,
oh gosh, yes.
Did you hear things like, keep it down a notch, kind of dim the light kind of experience?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
And why do you think... Go ahead.
I have 2 older sisters that are significantly older than I am. And the way it felt to me, I don't know what they were really doing. They were probably just being kids. The way it felt to me was belittled and a little bullied and teased and, and again, it was like, I remember like looking for cues and clues about how I had to be. I grew up in a family of scientists and I'm a psychic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, what? I grew up in a family of school teachers and I'm an entrepreneur. I just
didn't fit in the box. And so you're saying
it's okay.
It is okay.
You don't know
that then, right?
Didn't know it then. And I thought it was my fault.
So this is exactly why I wanted to have you on the podcast today, because I'm always looking for ways to exemplify to people what it is I'm trying to preach, right? So first of all, you just said you thought it was you. And that's very, very common because before we're 8, our ego is so huge, right? We're so egoistic. Our rational brain is not really developing. We're looking around saying, you're older than me, therefore you should know better. If you're making me feel like I'm different, I may be different. And by the way, I'm connotating different as being wrong, right? It's bad to be different. I should be conforming. I should fit in the box. And why don't I? And because I don't, it must be me, number 1. Number 2, you're also saying, I don't know if this is really what the intention was or whatever, but this is how it left me feeling. And I'm always saying to people, guys, trauma is not the experience. It's not the event. It's the interpretation of what it is that you're experiencing in a negative connotation with a negative self-view that changes the way that you see yourself. And then it changes the way that you interact with others and the world around you. So here you are, you're this ball of love and light, literally. You're this colorful, probably glitter, like bing, ba, bing, 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 bing. And they're saying, dim it down. When we're told to dim it down, we literally just start shedding authentic pieces of ourselves to meet the needs of others, so we will feel like we belong. So now you're shedding authentic pieces of yourself. You don't feel fully whole. You're feeling fractured. Insert alcohol. Ooh, this feels great because now I can be uninhibited. Maybe I am reconnecting with these pieces that I've shed that are too much, and I feel great. So at first, it becomes very adaptive. The alcohol. Would you say that that's true?
It worked like gangbusters. It really did. I had so much fun, and I felt like
you felt alive.
I felt super alive and not constrained by fear, which really dictated my not drinking life. The other piece that I want to point out is that this internalized, I'm not good enough, I'm not right, I'm somehow existentially flawed, also drove me to be super high achieving.
Yeah.
Super high achieving. So I was a straight A student and, won all the awards and was the star of the show. And so this dichotomy between how I presented and how I really was by day and by weekday and at school and how I acted on the weekend became super confusing.
To who?
To me.
Okay. And when you say the way you were, it's like, are you saying that you were super able to focus and be regimented and be conforming and in the box during the week in order to get that shit done? And then on the weekend, you would let go, like a work hard, play hard thing? What do you mean by that?
In my family, academic achievement was the ticket to being approved and seen. And so I conformed to that. It's not that I disliked it. And I mean, who doesn't like achieving? Who doesn't like getting A's on papers, And I got a lot of positive feedback from that. And the other piece of it is it served me well. I have had a fantastic career and written books and traveled the world. And it's what I'm trying to point out is those two things come from the same root.
100%. And it's so interesting. The other thing that you mentioned before, and I want to talk about both of these things, is your hypersensitivity to your environment and being hyper aware of all people's feelings all the time, which, by the way, is absolutely could be a sign of unresolved trauma. Right? Because now you're like, I need to make sure I'm in good graces. I need to make sure I fit in, which is part of the trauma, because really we want to belong, not be working so hard to fit in. Okay. Because there's a difference. And making sure everybody's happy. Are you happy with me? Are you happy with what I'm doing? Are you happy with who I am? Okay. Very, very common, which leads into what you're also talking about, which is this ability to overachieve. I'm not trying to take away from people who achieve. Okay. I'm going to preface this. However, I often find that when I'm working with people that have suffered from extreme burnout, that it is easy when they're finally ready to come and do the work for us to start to connect the dots all the way back to what you're talking about, which is I showed up in such a way for deep validation, deep external validation, deep praise, deep approval that I became a perfectionist. I wouldn't say no to anything. I had no boundaries. I was a super people pleaser. I definitely put your needs ahead of my own. And by the way, all of those things got me great praise, great accolades, but either I didn't feel any of it, or it didn't feel like enough, or I couldn't enjoy it because I was so burnt out, and ... often leads to some sort of physical ailment, chronic inflammation, some sort of autoimmune often, or I always get I have this rare disease that nobody can figure out. And we're also starting to connect the dots. This is all connected. So when I talk about that, Kay, how does that resonate with you and your personal experience?
I think early in my career, I did take things to that extreme, to that burnout extreme. And since I've been alcohol free, it's really been, I'm glad that I have the capability to turn on the skills that I need and the drive that I need to achieve what I want to have in my life and where I want to be of service in my life. And alcohol-free has allowed me to approach all of that with a sense of relaxation and joy, rather than when I achieve the next hurdle, then I'll be okay. I'm okay where I start.
Well, isn't it fair to say that the pre-AF would be, if I can hit the next milestone, then I'll know I'm enough for everybody.
Absolutely.
Whereas the post-AF, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I do it because I love it. I do it because it fulfills me internally, not because I'm seeking what your reaction is going to be on the outside.
Yeah, I think that's really fair.
Yeah. And would it be fair also that alcohol-free comes with the healing journey and the deep work as to why you were drinking and why you were overextending yourself, perhaps professionally?
It's really interesting, Stacey. I think that looking at the past is helpful, and healing some of the stuff that still comes up is helpful. What I find a really powerful antidote is to be very clear and intentional about the future that I am inventing and creating on a daily basis. I feel that what you think on grows. And if the only thing that I'm focused on, or the primary thing I'm focused on, is the difficulties in my growing up, then it feels hopeless to me. It doesn't feel hopeful to me. It doesn't feel big enough to me, because not only do I want to heal, I want to transcend, and I want to create different. So I think it's a bit of a balance of looking backwards and processing the things that come up today that I have big reactions to, which tell me if it's hysterical, it's historical, right?
Yes.
And looking at those things and working on those things, doing work on those things, and not getting stuck there.
Well, I was just going to say, when you're in it and you're younger, we're creating this huge story, right? As we get further away from it, and we've been doing the work, which clearly you've been doing the work over these decades, you can go back and look at it as a moment. Oh, I had that experience. Oh, I had that hurdle. Oh, I overcame that challenge. But we don't give it the same weight, and we don't give it the same interpretation. And it's not as heavy. It's just something that happened that we've been through. Is that fair? And when it comes up, you can be like, oh, I guess there's still some residual shit from that I haven't fully gotten through. I don't even want to let go of, because you don't really need to let go of it. You just need to be able to look at it through a different set of lenses.
I think I would crystallize the shift as this. I used to think that experience, my childhood, happened to me. And 100%. Now I think it happened for me.
Amen.
Because, look, if I hadn't felt neglected, too strong a word, unseen, unvalidated, would I love public speaking the way that I love public speaking, and my ability to carry the message of hope and freedom to other successful women? I don't know. Right. I've used it as fodder for a thriving life. I'm not going to re-victimize myself.
No, but you know what I'm thinking as you're talking, because I talk about this with my clients very often when we're on this healing journey of the what if. What if when we're born, there's this huge ticker tape that's created. That's by the way, here's a ton of experiences you're going to have. Your purpose in life is over here at this end of the ticker tape. And in order to realize your purpose, you're going to have to go through some shit, right? And you're going to have these experiences. This goes exactly with one in alignment of what you're saying, which is nothing's happening to you. The universe does not have this desire for you to experience pain for no reason, just to be masochistic. The universe has a plan. right? And so if we can go back and look at these experiences as, the 1.0 version of Kay, which I always say is like 0 to 19. And then like the 2.0 version is 20s, 3.0 is the 30s, 4.0 is the 40s, go on, so on, so forth. And we're designed to have these experiences. The biggest challenge is if you don't get the gift out of it, if you don't get the wisdom out of it, if you do not have the ability to look back and be like, well, shit, that was hard, but who was I then? And then who did I become from that? And is that the goal? It's these transformations, it's the transcendence that you're talking about. And then where am I because of it? So like, for example, I know, and even my parents, the people who know what my traumas have been growing up are like, well, you were built for this. Like what you're doing today, you could never do what you're doing today had you not had those experiences. I think all of the experiences I had in my life, as painful as they were, fucking awesome. Because I feel so much wealthier and wiser in my soul and my body and my mind. And I'm able to serve, as you used that term earlier, others from it. I couldn't do what I'm doing had I not gone through that, right?
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. And that's the way I work with the women that I coach is, my program and my approach is not about rules and punishment. It's about, we're going to stage a series of experiences and experiments. And then we have tools to be able to say, what worked, what didn't work, what did I learn, what's the nuance, extract their own wisdom from their own experience and coach them on how do they want to apply that moving forward. Because a lot of the, traditional approaches to recovery, like AA, you're either sober or you're not. You're either succeeding or you're failing.
And isn't that shame-based?
That's my issue with AA. It's done a ton of good. And it's where I went in 1999 when the negative consequences of my drinking definitely outweighed the benefits. And that's about all there was in 1999, treatment and rehab. And no, didn't know that they existed. So it's done a ton of good. But the fundamental piece of it is it's very shaming. For example, one of the steps is that we take an inventory on a daily basis, and we make notes about where we're selfish, resentful, dishonest, and afraid. And then there's and therefore learn what happened and you know what I mean? It's just like lash, 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 lash. And for the men that have alcohol problems who come in with these big grandiose ego, who think that the world should be in obeisance to them, that ego puncturing is a relevant antidote.
Yeah.
Women who have an issue with alcohol come in thinking that we are not good enough, that we're existentially flawed. And so continuing to beat the drum on how we're wrong only digs our problem more deep rather than being a relief and an antidote. So fundamentally at its core, that is my assessment and my analysis of why AA is so hard for women.
I have so many questions about this. Number one, if you have a woman that's drinking for exactly the same reasons that you were drinking, right? Let's just use this as an example. Life is gray and dull, and I have this fiery light in me, and I only experience that fiery light under the guise of alcohol. Okay. And they don't think that that's a problem, even though they're having a lot of challenges over the way, and people are sharing with them, this is a problem. Like, we're afraid for your safety kind of thing. How do you serve and help someone in that state who like maybe is still in denial, if you will, or doesn't want to take that step to say, I think it's a problem? Or do you even use that language? Like, how would you approach someone like that?
Well, I want to say a couple things. One, that's really not the picture of the kind of women that I talk to. Most of the women I talk to, Stacey, I would say they have so much achievement in so much of their lives. They've got their own businesses, they're engineers, they're this, they're that. They've raised kids, they have beautiful homes. And there's this one area of their life that is bafflingly out of control. And all of the skills that have made all the rest of this work are ineffective. And they are so confused and they keep thinking there's something wrong with them, that they're weak, that they're not trying hard enough, that this and that. That's the profile of the women that I talk to. Underneath it is exactly the way that I was, that same root of somehow existentially, I am inadequate and flawed, and I'm afraid I'm never going to be loved. But we take a little while to get there. The model that I have three things that help women determine whether or not their alcohol consumption is a problem.
Okay.
Number one, once they start, they have a hard time stopping. So they'll say, oh, I'm just going to have one drink. And they end up drinking 2 bottles. And they're like, what happened? I only was going to have one. The second hallmark is, once I say I'm never doing that again, I always start doing that again. So once I start, I can't stop. Once I stop, I always start, and it becomes a vicious cycle. The third hallmark is I spend so much mental time and energy thinking about drinking, like what happened last night, and do I have enough at home, and what the hell did I say, and like all the booze noise, if you will, in their mind. They're thinking more about drinking than what they're going to have for lunch tomorrow. So those are kind of the 3 experiences that tell somebody, I need to take care of this. And then fundamentally, I say, you have a drinking problem if you have problems that somehow involve drinking, that you've either made worse when drinking, or you created when you were drinking, or you added to while you were drinking, then you have an alcohol problem.
That is so powerful. And I'm so glad that you expressed it in exactly that same way. So say someone's listening and they're like, holy shit, that's me. What's a good first step for them?
Come to my link and schedule a 45-minute call with me.
Yeah.
Because what I'll help you understand is why this isn't your fault is a physiological rewiring of your brain that the molecules in alcohol do to your body. Thinking about it, willpower, weakness, and strength are immaterial. Your body wins over your mind every single time. And so I'll help you understand the physiology of it and what's holding you back and your best next step, right? So trying to do this alone is a fool's errand. Women like me and the women like I work with are independent, capable, high-achieving women, and we are used to getting shit done on our own. And that is exactly what's keeping you drinking. And so a simple conversation, like Stacey, you were saying, like shame can't survive the light.
Right.
And a simple conversation with somebody like me who's been there. I'm not a counselor that studied this out of a book. I'm not a minister who's never had this problem and is going to judge you and teach you what I learned out of some academic treatise. Like, I have been where you are, and I have done so much work over the 23 and a half years that I've been alcohol free, trying to find tools and ideas and concepts and actions that help me transform that experience into a magnificent life. And I have woven them together into a program that basically takes people from the place that I just described to a place where you truly are free to be your big ball of bright energy.
My God, alcohol free.
Alcohol free.
What can somebody expect that program to look like? Is it individualized? Do you have kind of a format or a methodology for it?
Oh, of course, I have a methodology. Yes, it's a course. It's a 6-month long course,
Okay.
and by design, because research shows that the longer you have support around an alcohol problem and resolving it, the more likely you are to have a long-term alcohol-free, happy existence. So by design, it's 6 months. It is a curriculum. There are about 10 lessons that get you from, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself? And how am I going to respond to somebody asking me why I'm not drinking, all the way to practicing spiritual principles as an antidote for this existential fear that we all have. But where it gets really cool is I have 3 open group coaching sessions a week at different days and different times, where people at different women, all accomplished women who are at different stages of their transformational journey are there. And there's no fluff. We are right at, helping people say, gosh, I've got this challenging situation. What's the spiritual principle that's the antidote? And usually it's things like forgiveness and honesty and acceptance and amusement. Like, this is does not, even though it's important, it doesn't have to be serious.
Yeah.
And so I insist on color and amusement. So that's what it looks like. People really love and support each other. And so they are creating their own tribe of other women just like them.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what you're doing. And I think it's so necessary. I love the fact that you were talking earlier about how, you went through AA. You could start to see how is really designed for men, obviously designed by a man. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's not a one size fits all. And that there are other options out there for recovery, for being able to go alcohol free. Do you do this program with other substance use, or do you do it just with alcohol?
Alcohol is the primary thing. It's my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
I do have women that have gambling issues, that have weed issues. And so it's not exclusive to alcohol. Typically what happens, though, is alcohol is the accelerator of other behaviors.
I mean, look, as a trauma recovery coach, I've done enough studying on this. I've never had particular issues with alcohol. So to your point, and this is why I love creating this village, because if I have a client with which this is a huge symptom and a coping strategy, I am not a one size fits all, right? This is why I create the village and I bring people like Kay into the mix. But, the challenge with alcohol, as I understand it, is the addictive portion of it. Okay. Like the physiological addiction to what is happening to the alcohol, how it's transforming your body. So how do you help people with that part of it versus just the mindset part?
Oh, it has to be more than that. With women that are drinking to a point that I'm afraid for them. I'm afraid for seizures. I'm afraid for acute alcohol withdrawal syndrome. I insist that they have some kind of medical not supervision's probably too strong. At least they have told their healthcare people what they're doing so that if they have a problem, they've got a resource on the ground that they know and they trust.
Mm-hmm.
That is outside of my purview. But if someone is at that point, I really do insist, please, you have to tell your doctor that this is how much you've been drinking and that you're quitting, because detox is outside of the scope.
So, I have a lot of questions, and if you feel like you have to defer. But if someone came to you and said, I want what you are offering, but I've got the rest of my family telling me I need to go into a rehab program, or I need to go into an inpatient program, how do you support that person? What is your advice to that person?
It's so based on the situation. What I might suggest is work with me for 2 weeks and let's see how it goes. And if you get relief, great. It's going to cost you a lot less money. It's going to be a lot less disruptive. And if you're not getting relief, absolutely go to rehab.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is it possible for you to work with people once they're out?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, there's a treatment center up in the mountains here in Colorado that, I do have a relationship with them where I'm the net that's waiting once their patients are done with an intensive 30-day program. 30 days is enough to have the alcohol clear your system and to get kind of a running start on creating an alcohol-free life. I think you're selling yourself short if that's what you settle for, because it's working on the stuff underneath the drinking.
Well,
that's the transformation.
Yeah. And again, because it's not my area of expertise, but I have a handful of very deep friends, peers, cohorts who have all recovered from substance use. And many times we're in rehab, many times, until they were able to get under the hood. And what I've always understood from speaking with them, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that getting under the hood is not the goal of rehab. The goal of rehab is to get the alcohol out of your system and to build some willpower to not, create some habits that will be the antidote to your point of whatever it is that they need the relief from. But getting under the hood and getting to the root, the reason, the cause for the initial foray into that experience is not really the primary focus of these programs. Is that accurate?
I'm sure it's different program to program, Stacey, and I haven't gone, so I don't know. All I can tell you is 30 days is not enough. Yeah. It's just not enough.
Yeah. We know the studies show most people do not.
Studies show.
Most people don't do rehab once.
I think that the recovery rate after a 30-day program is maybe 11%. And after a 5 or 6 month program, it's closer to 50%.
Right.
So there is a correlation. Plus, I think that our wiring in our brains, it takes a while for stuff to rewire.
Yeah.
And that takes practice and that takes time.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I was thinking about this as you were talking earlier, and I was going to ask you. So I'm always looking for what I mentioned before, a village approach to helping my clients heal on their healing journey. I believe I'm a part of it. I'm not all of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I recently was at the International Trauma Conference run by Bessel van der Kolk about a month ago. And a huge focus on this particular year's conference was neuroscience and neurofeedback. And the idea of neurofeedback, which was really fascinating to me, I had heard of it. I hadn't much knowledge of it at all, which is what you just described. It's this intentional and purposeful rewiring and reprogramming of the synapses of your brain in order to help kind of unscramble what's been scrambled, if you will. Okay. And it's a very, very simple process. And I got back, and the first thing I did was I researched local practitioners of neurofeedback. And I found this one gentleman, and for some reason I just felt it was a connect. So I went to his facility to check it out. And I asked him what his history, his experience was. To your point, he had been an alcoholic. He had had huge substance issues, had been in and out, and ended up landing in a 5-month program in Pennsylvania. And while he was in this 5-month program, they were testing neurofeedback on a select group of people that were in this inpatient intensive program. And he said it was good and he appreciated it, but he didn't really feel the immediate effects of it. When he got out, he was sober. He stayed sober. He stayed, in his particular case, it was alcohol. He was staying alcohol free, but that itch, that stuff underneath the hood, he was fighting it so often. And he was like, maybe I should try that neurofeedback stuff again. And so he found a local practitioner and he started some intensive neurofeedback work. And he said it literally changed his life. He ended up going back and becoming a counselor, a licensed counselor, a mental health professional, and now owns this neurofeedback center that helps in a very interesting, unique way. I went through one session myself, helps people reprogram their brain for different stimulus. So do you have any experience with neurofeedback, or have you had any clients that have done neurofeedback?
No, I really haven't.
It's so crazy. Are you familiar with it at all?
Yeah, I am. And I think anything that helps. Why not?
That's how I feel.
Why not?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
You know, there's medication now that can help remove the cravings. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, neurofeedback. Why not? Ketamine treatment. Why not?
I agree.
I mean, I just feel like it's not a moral failing if, you know, you can't do this on your own. And my approach is very similar to yours. Like, knit together the resources you need.
Yeah.
That feel good for you right now. And just because something works for you now doesn't mean it's going to work for you at year 5 or 2 or in 9 months. So I don't have I'm going to lock you down into my system kind of a thing.
Same.
I feel like medical advances are making giant leaps around this area. Look at Ozempic and like, why not? Why not? Why not arm yourself with what we have today?
Well, it's interesting because you were just mentioning before, you know, sometimes you can't always do it on your own, right? And we were talking about earlier about life purpose. And I think people misunderstand what life purpose is when we often talk about it. I think we were definitely raised to be like, what's going to be your purpose in life? And people are like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer or a doctor. Like somehow they align it with a vocation or a profession. But I see it so much bigger. You know, sometimes the purpose in life is the lessons that you've learned in life and who it transforms you into being. And perhaps when we talk about experiences happening for us versus to us, one person's life purpose could simply be to learn how to accept help.
Oh my God, that's a huge lesson.
Right? But like that might just be the purpose. It's to learn that it's okay to rely on other people and it's okay to ask help and it's okay to receive support. And having gone through extreme challenge in your life where you had to learn how to only rely on yourself and then find yourself in a position where you can only get to the next step if you rely on others, could be someone's greatest gift and greatest purpose in life. It's that letting go and surrender.
The piece that I want to say is I learned by teaching. I don't want to come across as I've got it all,
Right.
and I'm the only source. I think we all teach what we need to learn. And, I find that when I hold myself above the women that I'm coaching and helping, it doesn't work. If it's me with an open heart, showing what I've learned and seeing if it's helpful to them, it's more helpful.
Listen,
actually.
That's what I think it's so important you're saying this. People need to understand coaches are flawed. Coaches have their own shit. We're all on a learning journey. We just might be in a position where we've learned a whole bunch of great tips, a whole bunch of great tools, a whole bunch of great ways that we have learned to help heal ourselves that have been effective with others. And if you're willing to come into our space, I'll share with you everything I know and I'll adjust accordingly. But it is a journey for us as coaches, often individual journeys with every single client. And we learn from every single client that is brought to us. And I believe the universe brings us exactly who we're meant to have. So it is a journey that we are on with you side by side. There's no dictating. There's no authority that I know better. I just know that these things have worked. And if you're willing to sit with me, I'll show you how they work. And let's see how we can adjust them so they can give you the best outcome for your particular situation.
Well, there you are. In a nutshell, what we do.
In a nutshell,
I love it.
Right?
Yeah,
people need to know we have our own shit, that we experience pain, that we cry, that we get stuck, that we feel sad. What I think is the difference between where we are and where we used to be is simply that the frequency of it, the duration of it, and the intensity of it is much less. We can recognize it quicker. And we can move through it quicker. So we're in struggle less. And if we can teach our clients how to do that, that is the healing journey.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I would love to know, Kay, how people can find you if this spoke to them.
So come to juicyaf.life and let's put a / and then flip. And that will get you to a page where you can schedule your call with me.
I love that. And we will make sure that we have that in the show notes. Everybody needs to know that Kay has her own book. It's called Juicy AF, Stop the Drinking Spiral, Create Your Future. I cannot imagine that anybody that has listened to this that's on the struggle bus with alcohol would not be interested in coming and getting flipped by you. Flip your shit with Kay. Kay, thank you so much for being a guest. We really, really appreciate it.
This was a great conversation, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.